What's up, guys? Welcome back to the Skin in the Game podcast. Here with Ivan. It's been a couple weeks since we last recorded. I'm now situated in Arizona. Excited to be here, and Ivan's been out. So Ivan, why don't you tell us what's been happening?
Well, I went to Colombia for 2 weeks, met a lot of they call themselves expats, man, which I don't necessarily like. I don't know if I could ever see myself calling myself that, but a lot of different changes in business and AI, just a lot. What about you?
Things have been good in terms of just moving, getting things settled here, finally having a home base, which is nice. Being able to set things up in a more permanent manner, which I think is annoying in the process, but ultimately good once you get settled in. So I'm excited for a lot more content, a lot more consistent output now that things are more stationary and stable.
I talked to a VC last year when I moved into this place, and she's like, it's actually scientifically proven that it is the easiest to form new habits when you move.
100%. It's new beginnings, and that's one thing I've been very open and kind of adamant about of like, okay, what are new habits I want to create that are very healthy in a way of like or conducive to new behavior because it's a new beginning. I mean, you're starting from a blank slate, so it's easier to set the guardrails early on.
Yeah, for sure.
And I mean,
So
like anything with behavior change, I mean, it's like the same thing as AI native companies versus companies adopting AI. It's like either you start fresh or you're trying to refit an old mold.
yeah, that's exactly it. What else have you seen in the last couple weeks? What's on your list of new and interesting stuff that happened the last few
So
weeks since we last spoke?
yeah, so the big thing that I've looked at and seen and still trying to kind of grapple around is there's two things. There's one which is a huge swing for AI in terms of especially now like with I think it was YC put out a paper and Sequoia put out a paper too of talking about how service as a software is the new kind of thing where it's like okay, SaaS was hyped, but for like every $2 that people spend on SaaS out of like $100, 8 to 10 of those are going to services. And they were talking about like how the new wave of AI, and especially with all these VCs, is that they now want to invest in AI native software companies. I know Hermes is big on that too. So it's really interesting to see kind of like how an AI native agency is becoming like the new thing that people are really interested in, which is on one side of things. But then on the completely other side, it's the understanding of like how events and IRL, as people call them, like just in real world events, that being the big thing too, which I think is just the dichotomy of like the opposites on the bell curve of you have one side where there's a crap load of focus on AI optimization, and then the other part is just trying to do more in person, kind of like go back to the roots and really create a moat that way.
I also think it one allows more of the other. Um,
100%.
because the especially if you did services, like
Yep.
the service as a software has been something I've been kind of obsessed with for the last 2 months because it is not only it's not only the margins that are like, oh, they're amazing, you can charge similar prices or even lower prices but still have a crazy margin,
Yep.
but it's also the a redefinition and an integration of both. And I think that's why like models like watching older interviews of Palantir help understand it more because they've been in that path for a minute. It's like, what
Hmm.
what are you? What do you sell? Do you sell? Are you a software company? Are you this company? And you have a bunch of people that say like, I don't even know exactly what Palantir does. Like
Hmm.
that's like the most common thing. And then you go watch a lot of the interviews, and then what they say is that we're results as a service.
Yeah.
It is the ultimate alignment of incentives, and I think that's what service leveraging AI allows you to do. And and get into the AI native stuff in a minute because there's been certain things that I've implemented over the last like month or two that have like I won't work the same again. And I think this is it's actually an advantage for remote teams, but in-person teams can actually use it too. But yeah, sir. Also, with service as a software, if you have some form of platform or some form of thing that aggregates data, the advantage starts going into not the feature moat, like how difficult is it to recreate this feature, recreate that, or recreate this. It now becomes in the how I've got 1,000 different reps in that I
Yeah, and
know the
the context
operational
layer.
playbooks. I have
Yeah,
the context layer to give my agents to actually execute something effective. Like I know how to run a successful Facebook ad for the roofing niche to sell insurance claims, and you
yeah,
don't. And I know how to do it
yeah.
in San Diego, and I know exactly and I have 1,000 reps doing so, which has trained up my pixel in order to do so. That is the moat.
Mhm.
Um, which I think is infinitely more valuable. And I actually think the multiples on those businesses are going to be like even more insane because like you can't recreate Palantir without the 20 years of reps in codifying work streams in the US military.
Oh, for
You
sure.
just
I
can't.
think like the biggest thing too is you're buying speed, and if you think of from a VC standpoint, why do they buy a company? Well, so they could just throw more money and grow it faster. And at that point, if you have the context layer, you can handle that because it's like it's just plugging that piece into whatever machine you want, and it's just gonna further grow and kind of scale the other aspect of things. So without a doubt, it's definitely interesting to see it, and also just piggybacking on what you're talking about is in terms of how Palantir is positioned as like we're a results based service, like you're buying results. And I think that's also really interesting because obviously I've been a part of Client Ascension and followed it, and like they're big in the agency space. And the whole thing there is like nobody wakes up and thinks, "Oh, I want a cold email system." It's like, no, they don't care about what you're doing. They wake up and think, "Oh, I want more leads. I want more sales. I need more money." And the faster you can kind of position your service in the way of you're guaranteeing that or you're incentivizing and you're talking about that, it's like, I don't really care. It's like that's what I'm focused on. So I think the big shift of just with a SaaS is like you can't really guarantee it. It's like I will like Shopify can't guarantee I'll build you a profitable e-commerce store. It's like, no, I'll give you the tools to build it on top of it where you can do it yourself. But
But it
with an
can't actually
agency,
do it.
exactly,
And
exactly. And I
and
think
if
that
you look
that's where
at
the piece is from a
yeah,
service standpoint because the service can do it. And as long as they just focus on, like, okay, do you really care if I do SEO, cold email, ads, webinars, like whatever I do you care? It's like, no, I just want whatever gets me results. And the faster you can position that way, now I think that A, you're obviously capturing more of that value. B, it's an easier sell because at the end of the day, they want the result. They don't really care about like how you get there. And then C, it's like the aspect of you're now capturing more of the vertical and leveraging AI to utilize that. You're now going to see a higher output faster because you can scale it more. It's not as constrained because the biggest challenge with an agency has always been the overhaul, like the overhead and the operational component of it's highly segmented, it's specialized skills, and people are pushing it. But now if you can automate that, and especially also then if you have 10 years of data in terms of context that you can feed into this and you can streamline it, like then you're making it super efficient.
and yeah, and I think it all goes like all roads lead to almost training your own proprietary model in editing the internals based on the context and the private data that you do have. Because the
Hmm.
like if there's the two moats in the AI are the hardware and then data. So it's like how are these companies scaling AI? It's they're like the hyperscalers. It's just like more data, more data, more data. Even talking about synthetic data. And like the synthetic data is just like stuff that we're making up so to train it on. And I've literally tried to train an agent, which is a layer above the model, so it doesn't influence it as much, but it influences behavior on synthetic financials, for example, in order to like do bookkeeping. But it's
Hmm.
nowhere near as the real actual exports from QuickBooks and Chase and this and that to
Yeah.
actually make sure that the edge cases that come up are actually handled. And I think what's
Yeah.
insane about that is the reason services as a software can be more valuable is because of like it is the data. You just have the context to train the model on at a even more at a just exponentially more insane rate. It's just so much better. It's insane. Like, and
Mhm.
this kind of goes back into the second thing that you mentioned, the Y Combinator request for startups. They requested a company brain, and I don't know if you've attempted to do something like that. It is like the most insane thinking tool because Jack Dorsey in an interview said like every company can be legible now. Like you can literally
Yeah.
talk to your business. And
Mhm.
what I did over the last few months is I basically made that company brain, wired a bunch of transcripts, put them all into one thing, into a folder, like a private Git, and then had
Yep.
everything stored, Slack channels, emails for the last 6 months for clients, like ClickUp tasks and communications, all these comms, and the time to onboard someone and to have someone know what the hell's going on goes from like 90 days to like a week. Like
Yeah.
did you prompt Claude connected to the company brain enough to actually know what the hell's going on? And I think that it allows for insane decision making.
Yeah, because because like the biggest challenge has always been like everything's so fragmented. It's like, oh, Bobby knows where that is, or John set it up and he kind of knows where that is. But now you can reverse engineer everything. And that, like, I've even looked at it at this point. It's like when you're talking to customer or when I'm navigating softwares, it's like I just ask Claude, hey, I'm trying to do this in this software. How do I do it? It's like it's
Yeah.
faster than that. And I think that especially then to bring that in for your own data is where you're going to see a tremendous amount of benefit. And then you see things like paperclip and a lot of these agentic solutions and Hermes. It's like if you can then feed that in, like you can link that and it can pull. Now it kind of knows the context of what it's trying to do.
And it's actually useful stuff. Like
Hmm.
it's you ask it a question, what should I do with my business, with no context versus the last 6 months of transcripts. So basically, I have a command that every time a new transcript is fed into it, it runs like a /ingest command. And what it does is it reads that entire transcript, log any of the decisions that were made over the course of that Zoom call, and then it keeps like a decisions log, and it keeps like a like business context file. So in the same way that software has documentation in the Git repos, so
Yep.
you like understand how the software works, the business itself has documentation that is always being updated. So it's like this employee got promoted to this and is making around this much and this much, and like this is the next 90 days of what everyone's working on. This is what all the decisions that were made over the last 90 days, etc. And now you ask it, what do you think I should build? And the answers to
Hmm.
that are like so insane, it's disgusting.
Yeah.
And it can
But
actually
again,
act on stuff.
it's pulling from the context because if we think of it, what does it require to be in business? It's like, well, you need a customer, a service or product you provide, and a way and a means of collecting payment. Like that's the core element of it, right? And it's like again, you see all these clips on Twitter. It's like, oh, I would sell AI to 7 businesses and for six thousand
Yeah.
dollars each, and I'd making 36,000 a year. Like da 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 da. It's like okay, cool. Like we all know 1 + 1 = 2, but like all the steps in between there, execution. Like yes, it is that easy in theory, but then there's all these other sub steps below it. And I feel like that's the difference between something like that of just asking, hey, Claude, how do I make $1 million in a year? Well, you have to do this and this and this. You have to make $83,000 a month and da 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 da. It's like, okay, theoretically, super easy. But then, like, contextual data is where that thing happens. And that's where, again, it's like you're saying, where you have the brain, you feed it the information. Now, what should I do based on this? And it's going to know, oh, this decreased or this increased, or we saw a change in this and we saw a change in that. Like that's when you're really starting to get somewhere.
And I think it kind of gets a little philosophical too, because it goes
Hmm.
into like the only way to generate that context and that private data is through action. The only way to know which ads work the best, as you know, is to just like fuck up 30 different ads and spend 3 grand and
Yeah.
lose 2,500 of it, and 500 of it is like an actual close. And then it's like, okay,
Yeah.
actually building a system around that. And then
Hmm.
where AI helps is being able to connect everything and make that data legible, and then having it respond to you in one sentence that's like, yo, this was our most successful ad campaign. Here's what I can do. I can build out a whole pipeline around I can write 30 scripts exactly like this. And then at
Mhm.
that point is where AI is like super, super useful, is moving the data and helping you read it. But you
Yeah.
yourself have to actually be doing shit to actually make the sawdust of your work makes the
Yep.
data that actually makes the AI useful, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
No, no,
If
100%,
not, then there's
100%.
nothing. There's AI is just guessing, and you're kind of just like spreadsheet having like spreadsheet sex with yourself, and it's like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, you can chart everything out, but at the end of the day, it's like you're not gonna know. It's like, what's the best ad? How many ads do we need? It's like, bro, I don't know. Like,
yeah, dude.
we'll start
There's
somewhere and
a
we'll see what works.
there's a guy. So I was on a call. I got to be on a call where some guy was asking another guy for advice, and they were like, "Yo, just join. Like, just come listen." And this guy was an operating partner in a home services Rollup. So they buy HVAC,
Yeah.
electrical services, etc.
Yep.
And
And they roll them
during
up.
his time, he took it from 100 million to 300 million.
Oh,
So it's
sheesh.
like,
Yeah.
what's the gap?
Yep.
And I think they're only in Florida, which is like
Oh,
insane.
wow.
So
Yeah.
like, what's the gap? Like, what did you do in between then?
Yep.
And he's like, dude, like my main takeaway was what they ended up doing is, yeah, they ripped out their softwares and custom developed their softwares, but what they did, this was pre-AI, so like they paid like $2-3 million over the course of 2-3 years in order
Hmm.
to connect all their software.
Yep.
And he's like, what that allowed us to do is we connected the QuickBooks to the actual Service Titan, which is how they keep track of their operational work. But all this data that was inside of all this was connected. And what that allowed them to do is hold everyone accountable. So it's like, all right,
Yep.
we have people that actually show up on time, people that actually fill out the SOP, people that actually do this and actually do that. Then at that point, we could generate quotes and do this and do this and do this and do this and do this. So all that data flow allows is for AI to actually make decisions. And this was pre-AI. They had like 30 different people checking reports on checking reports on checking reports on checking reports to make sure
Yep.
that data made sense all the way through. And he's like,
Yeah.
that accountability alone is what took the productivity from our business being able to do 100 million a year to 300 million a year, because all of a sudden you're just not getting lost in the sauce across 7 different cities in Florida because I can't keep track of everything.
No, for sure. And I think a big part of it too is just understanding what are the crucial KPIs you're going after and then maniacally focusing on those. It's like I had a buddy
Yes.
that they went from like 3 to 10 in a year in roofing, and it was like they had in the beginning I think he had like 9 or 10 KPIs per rep, and it's like none of them hit it because it's just all over the place, versus swapping it out with 3 KPIs. It's like, one, you can manage it and you can track it better, and two, it's like it's a lot more you're either failing or you're not, right? So it's like simplifying in order to scale. And I think that as you add that over different cities, different complexity, and different variations, it's like that's just going to become the bottleneck of trying to figure it out. Simply put.
Yeah. I wrote it down. That's why I'm wanting to find it. It is connecting basically the financial brain to the operational brain, which
Yeah.
by brain, I just mean the softwares they're using that hosted all their data, and the sales brain. So they connected all 3 systems. And what that enabled was data flow. And what that enabled was accountability from that data.
Yeah.
So accountability to the KPIs that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And they literally are able to find the bottleneck is in the fact that Tony here is lying about the quote that he gave the roofer and finished 2 hours later. So that he stopped working 2 hours earlier than what he said. So he billed us an extra 2 hours. But if 10 different people do that every single day, all of a sudden this is like an
Huge
extra
bloated, yeah, expense.
$200,000 on the bottom line. And on top of that, their inventory, which is their calendar,
Mhm.
they know down to like the minute or like the 30-minute
Yeah.
of like 30 minutes on this technician's calendar is worth this much. And then they boiled down because they connected their banks and everything. It's like, and we know the exact cost. So like we literally know the unit economics of a human, which has been the bottleneck for services as a whole. So it ties back to what you were saying before of like, they literally know the unit economics of the service, which goes into like agency services, even like you knowing how much your employees cost per client it
hour
takes
on
to
the
fulfill
task
them
and
and all
and
this
how many
stuff.
hours. Yeah, a lot of it is just the data of like knowing what's your cost of goods, right? And I think that the like
Exactly.
if you don't know that, you can't calculate in terms of the numbers and really crank it out to then see, are you on target, under target, or above target?
Yes. And if you don't know, then it's hectic, so it doesn't scale. It scales weird. And
Mm-hmm.
what he said is that what that in a nutshell, what he said over the course of like an hour, just compressed, is that accountability allowed things to be stood up much faster, which allowed us to add new revenue lines. So like
Yeah.
where usually it'd be too hectic to start selling 4 different services,
Yeah.
all of a sudden we could stand one service up to 10 million a year, and then another service up to another 10 million a year, then another service up to another 10 million a year, then another service to 50 million a year. And like it's all boom, 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 because the accountability is just flowing across the whole thing. And that's how they added 200 million in revenue. And I was like,
Yeah.
whoa.
No, and if you think about it too, it's like they've already done the hardest part. They've acquired the customers. So now it's just cross-selling, upselling, and reselling, which is an easier part because you've removed the CAC in terms of the cost of acquiring the customer, and you're just layering on upsells and cross-sells. It's like it's the easiest money you can make, and especially with a lot of services like that, it's more of, can you just add it into the pipeline without it slowing you down? And in that case, it seems like
And
they're
without
able
ruining
to.
your reputation. Like can you
Yeah.
actually deliver on the thing you're upselling without breaking the service that got you where you're at and then
Yeah.
ruining your name?
Yeah.
Which is where their customer service and all that stuff started getting into it, because I was just like, because 100 to 300 is tripling something that's already massive.
Yeah. No, for sure. Big time.
Like, how the hell did you do that?
Yeah.
Well, we just built out another 5 different businesses under our business. But how do you build out 5 different businesses without losing your complete mind if building one business is hard enough?
Yeah. No, it's
I
it's
was
it's
like,
interesting because
oh,
so Eddie Malouf is an agency owner, and he talked about this concept of how it's easier to scale a business to like $2 million and then have 5 of them as opposed to scale 1 to 20, especially if they are very adjacent services. Where like for he's a marketing guy, right? So he has a ads agency, and then he adds on an email agency, and like his whole thing was he just kept buying agencies, and then he would cross-reference and like pollinate the deals where it's like you get in the door with Facebook ads, and then you realize once you run the Facebook ads that it's not the ads that are the problem or the bottleneck here in the company. It's really email marketing, right? They're not driving 40% of the revenue, which they should be if it's a healthy e-commerce store. So then you got an email company, and then he kind of just started buying up different ones, which are all independent but all under the co-brand. So if you think of it from an efficiency standpoint, they have the same payroll, the same back end, but the front end is operated as small independent entities with their own P&L. All the
yeah,
different heads of those pods are incentivized based on their own P&L. The expenses in terms of the back office are consolidated and streamlined to where now you have it individually. And then what they did too was they bought, like, you have a tier A agency and then a tier B agency, right? Where it's like, okay, you have a really good ads agency, but which is good for some clients, but other clients it's out of reach. But that what you could do in that case is you can downsell them to where it's now like, okay, cool, you'll be downsold to the B team, right? And he talked about it too, of like just the efficiency of it, of understanding you could provide multiple services. And even I've seen this at a very, very small scale. It's like, I could be doing a lot of different things, but especially at my size, do I want to? Is the key question, right? Like, does this add to my operational intensity of using different tasks and being all over the place in terms of the services I provide? I think at this scale, no. But later on, once you've grown bigger and you can have different teams or different entities that could do these same services, then you're just you're paying to acquire one customer on the front end, and then you can kind of pinball them around your machine, and they can hit different pods that can drive different revenue, which just increase the overall LTV of the customer, which then allows you to go spend more to acquire the next one.
exactly. Yes. And then the question that you ask is like, is this worth the operational lift?
Yeah.
All of a
Bef-
sudden
before
becomes
it
like,
wasn't. Before it wasn't always.
yeah, it was like, you can't really know. But now it's like, well, if you turn the thing that you were doing into a bit of an agent, and you just have one person that can handle 100 different clients just off the back of all these AI workflows, all of a sudden it is now worth it, and you can add the new revenue line on top of that. And on, like, even with the back office thing that you were talking about, it like that's like the whole value add of PE. It's just like we
Mhm.
just have a back office and a management services team that can actually do everything for you, and you don't have to actually be
Yeah.
a professional business owner. And I
Yep.
think that's all BS. But like now you can have your own little management services on the back end because everything is now connected. Like you can, it's not crazy to scale up the revenue stream,
Mhm.
attach it, make sure that all the data is flowing all the way through and the accountability is in place and everything's in order, and then
Yep.
add a second revenue stream because you're just not like, and if you think about what that allows you to do, it allows you to focus on solving the actual damn problem. Because instead
Exactly.
of just offering your service, like your widget, you're like, hey, I'm I'm a circus clown that just does this one trick. Like I'm a
Mhm.
basketball player that just shoots 3-pointers. Instead of just focusing on how can I shoot the best 3-pointer possible, now all of
Mhm.
a sudden it's like, how can I actually win the game? Like how can I actually
Yeah,
solve the problem that you care about, which is new revenue? So
for sure.
you and I both know that it is a mixture of like content plus ads plus the back end
Of course.
email list and all this stuff. And
Yep.
before, doing all that is super complex, but now it's like
Yeah. No, for sure. Especially
now
also
it's yeah,
if you can centralize the brain that can then feed the brain plus then the skills or prompts that can do the different verticals, it's like you can automatically feed all of them at the same time, and just
yes,
push it out. It's like I was reading one of the things that the marketer from Anthropic was talking about, right? And he
yeah,
basically said that like AI has three layers in terms of like workflows, right? It's like one, the simple one is automating the task that takes a lot of work, right? Or used to take a lot of time, like repetitive tasks. Two comes down to basically doing like using it as a brainstorm, kind of like coming up with new ideas and really leveraging it for the strategy. And then I was talking about like the layer three was something that most people overlook, because basically the whole premise behind layer three was what are previously unprofitable activities that can now become profitable by leveraging AI, right? And like
yeah.
his whole thing was they would be testing hundreds of keywords on Google search, which before used to take forever. Now it's like you could
It's an
basically just have.
unreasonable ask.
Yeah,
That's
exactly,
now
exactly. Like
reasonable.
exactly,
Yeah,
because it's too tedious, it's too slow, and you're not going to get a high ROI. But the premise of it is before it just didn't make sense. Now it makes sense because you can automate all of it, and it's like, okay, cool, you're going to get a 2% increment lift or a 0.5 or whatever. But if you stack that on a weekly basis over a year, and then you grow, it's like, okay, you're going to see a exponential return that previously couldn't been justified in the human labor it would take to do it, but now you suddenly can, right? Like I
yeah,
saw this one aspect of like I think it was an open cloud agent that looked at Google Maps, and it looked at different properties that were like valued over say 500K a year, and then it basically took screenshots of their backyard and then showed what a pool would look like, and then it basically created a PDF, automatically sent that to some mail provider that then sends these out in the mail. Same thing. Before, that would have been a complete waste of money because it's like it just takes so much time to like filter through it and do all of this. But now it's like they could literally have a 0.001% conversion rate on a $30,000 pool and still be super super profitable, because it's costing you 0.5 cents or whatever, like 5 cents per token that you're running to do the workload, and then it's like $1 for mailing out a physical mailer, which means that
yeah,
you can, again, the volume now justifies a profitable activity.
yeah. And like it's so interesting to me too how what really helped me understand this all and how to leverage it exactly the way you're saying is understanding what AI actually is. Because you don't like, most people don't know what it is. They think it's like, oh, is it this thing that thinks and doesn't. No, it doesn't think. Like it doesn't do it. It is literally just pattern matching tokens.
Yeah.
High level understanding
Yeah.
is like it's just literally predicting the next thing that you're going to say, which is why what you say to it is so important, and you can kind of, that's why you get people that get one-shotted and end up going a little crazy, because they literally
Mhm.
just are affirming their own beliefs inside of it, and it just goes
Yeah.
haywire. But anyways, it's like, if you understand how to drive that token matching that
Mhm.
happens next, then, and you know that you're constrained to the fact that it's not like an intelligent being that has feelings or does this, then you can drive certain actions. And then if you think about it all, this was the biggest unlock for me with AI, especially with things like Claude Code and things like that. Because for me, I thought it was super intimidating, because I'm not technical. I'm not a
Yeah.
coder. I'm not a developer. Like, there's no point in this.
Yeah.
But then, like, what you're going to end up seeing 1,000% is that agents like Claude Code and Codex, and you're already seeing it with Claude Cowork, because it's literally the same product just rebranded for non-tech people,
Yeah.
is that the tokens end up, like, they're just pattern matching characters and tokens, which ends up
Mhm.
being English words, which then is how you communicate strategy. So that solves communication. But if you think about everything else, PDFs, Excel files, everything else is literally just lines of code. If it's on a computer and you can see it, whatever it is, they're just lines of code. So then if you pattern match the results and you know how to direct the intelligence, basically the pattern matching power, then you know how to direct it in the right way, then all of a sudden you get an action that is done by code on behalf of you, and then now it's moving. So it's like, how do you build the pipelines? If you think of AI as like electricity in the wire, and then your prompts and skills and everything as the scaffolding of how the wire flows,
Mhm.
then yeah, like, I'm getting a little, it helps me understand how to use these agents, because then, all I need to do is figure out the exact configuration for the electricity to flow through, and it'll be
Yep.
good. And I actually think that's how we're going to get closer to like AGI, or what feels like AGI, than more compute, more this, more that, more this, more that. I think it's the private data that allows you to build the flow of the intelligence, because it's not intelligence. It just seems like intelligence because we think it's smart, but it's like the equivalent of like a high horsepower, maximum IQ, but stupid retard that doesn't know, like, has no context to how your business. Not sorry, that's not the word I meant to use. I meant to use the word intern, like a retarded intern, basically. Like a retarded intern who's
And if
like,
anyone wants to apply to be an intern at Ivan, see the link below.
like, this guy had like the most perfect SATs, most insane ACTs, the most insane test scores of all time. But like, you assign a simple task to him and he just like fucks it up completely. And it's like,
Yeah.
why? You're so smart. Nah, he just
Mhm.
has a lot of horsepower.
Yeah, it's like a cannon that can shoot, but you need to point it in the right direction and tell it what to do. So
Exactly. And the only thing
in
that does that is
itself,
the data. Is
yeah,
is that.
the data and then also the command of what you're requesting it to do.
Yeah. And like that, yeah. It's pretty cool. And I saw a video that's like, I think humans are the most insane thing ever, because like the most insane, because we literally train dirt and rocks to be computers and think, and now they're like doing shit.
Yeah.
Like, these things are just dirt. Like, these things are just rocks and minerals that were somewhere, that we tricked to trapping electricity, that ends up being the
Yeah.
words on your screen, that ends up being code, that ends up being all this shit that someone is being used to like generate the most ridiculous AI UGC videos of all time.
Yeah, it's something else as far as that goes. But no, tell me what you've been using Hermes for, because I'm considering setting it up.
Um, so it's a lot of it is, honestly, I hate having to repeat myself to AI more than probably. I know everyone hates it. I really hate it because
Okay.
I
Like
I
how
can't
much
stand
more? How much more? Like
it.
on a graph from disliking it to disliking a retarded intern, where are you?
I call it that. I'm like, don't be this.
Yeah.
But like, it's like, I hate it. So
Yeah.
what? So building the company brain and logging it and having all the data. Like let's say you run a marketing agency that has 100 clients and you have 3 years worth of comms inside of your email ClickUp. You have call recordings because your team has been remote for the last 3 years. You literally get to see all that information from the very beginning.
Mhm.
If you, all of a sudden all that is legible and it has an idea of how SOPs are done, and SOPs are just skills. So you have
Yeah.
all these SOPs, you have all this, you have all that. What Hermes is really good at is Hermes, whatever, Hermes is better than OpenClaw, is that Hermes self improves. So,
Mhm.
like, it basically analyzes your last 15 conversations and says, what skills have I not been using? What's bloat and what's not? And it'll kill certain things or it'll rewrite certain things and rewire itself. So then as time goes on, it's better. So, what I've used it for is to A, improve that loop much faster,
Yep.
but B, not only just general use, but you can, and I did this, pull the company brain onto the desktop and onto the computer. So then all of a sudden it's almost like you're literally speaking to your business that can go do something. So like what I mean by that is I can right now message Hermes, and this is how I was using Claude Code. But the reason I don't want to keep using Claude Code as much is because Claude Code thinks like a developer. Like like the harness on top of it is for developing code. But
Yeah.
what they accidentally did by, and now I'm getting really technical, but I think it's worth understanding how it works. What they did by opening up the context window and making it to where they can hold a whole software, like all the
Mhm.
code of a whole massive software in its head, it can also hold a shit ton of operational data in its head. So all of a sudden, I found myself using a coding agent as just normal Claude.
Yeah.
And it was so much better. But the code, because it's a coding agent, oftentimes I'm like, bro, I didn't ask you to like code an app. Like I'm
Yeah.
just asking for questions. I want answers to this.
I
So like what
always I
Hermes
always I
does,
always I always have to
yeah,
default to like, don't create anything, don't do anything, just give me the output in the chat.
exactly. But what Hermes does is because it has the coding agent, sure, like the underlying model, all Claude Code is the harness or the plumbing that I'm talking about
Mhm.
to have a developing agent. Like that's
Mhm.
really what it is for the most part, but it has the large amount of context that can be held inside its brain.
Yeah.
So what I mean by that is like Hermes, I still don't even know how to pronounce it. People say Hermes because it's luxury, like the bag,
Yeah.
is that it's more general use. So you
Okay.
can customize it so it can have the benefit of being able to hold a massive repository in its head, which the
Yep.
repository is just your company brain, which is just operational data.
Yeah.
Then it can still do read, as in reading all that context, and it can still do write, which is coding and doing actions. So
Yep.
all of a sudden, the actions that it can take are a lot less from a developer's point of view and a lot more to whatever view that you want.
Yeah.
Because you can tell it what view to have by editing like the soul and the memory and like the whole like the markdown files that it ends up reading, which is what Claude
Yep.
Code is. It
Mhm.
has like its own harness, its own markdown files that it reads through and it interprets all your prompts through, and that's why the model underneath is Opus 4.7, but it's a totally different beast. Like
Got
it
it.
feels like a superhuman AGI developer.
Yeah.
So you can have the same thing, but instead of developer, just replace that with whatever you want to customize it towards. So you can have the
Yeah.
superhuman AGI feeling blank, but if you make it towards, let's say you have a like an advertiser, if you have all that operational data that it can hold in its context and actually use as context, all of a sudden, and I'm like speaking this out loud for the first time because I haven't articulated it to most people, but like if you try it, it is the most insane thing ever. Like I've had
Yeah.
it make, like Claude Code becomes mind blowing when I have it make a software when I somewhat have an idea for a software that'd be useful. But like
Yeah.
that's rare. But being able to make ads at scale make creative at scale, write scripts at scale. All a script is the same thing as an app because it's literally just code, which is text.
Yeah.
So in the same way that it can pattern match code, which is text, into software, it can pattern match scripts or prompts to video generating things. Like right now, what I'm turning my Hermes into, one of them is the scaffolding or the inner workings of like a filmmaker.
Okay.
So I can generate creative that's actually useful. Like most AI generation of ads is all really shit, but it's because they're thinking like a tech nerd who's trying to do filmmaking, which is video, because video has its own grammar. The same way that copywriting has its own grammar. So it's like you can embed the grammar into the harness, and all of a sudden it's optimized this model that's underneath, Opus or whatever it is. And by the way, hack, if you run everything through OpenAI, they allow you to use your subscription, and GPT 5.5 is nuts. So like you get a cloud model for $20, $100 a month if you want the mass usage. You get the intelligence of the cloud models, which is GPT 5.5 and Opus 4.7. The most insane models ever. But you get the operational like scaffolding of what you have, and all of a sudden you have an agent harness that's around that model that turns it into whatever you want to point it towards. And it's like nuts. The outputs of it are insane. And you could like, if you think about it, like think about whatever any employee that you would want has a specific set of like character traits and like habits or tasks that they would optimize towards. And you can basically route it, that harness. That's what they did with Claude Code and Codex. Okay, what does a good software developer do? It can maintain everything in its head. Like a good developer can maintain all this other stuff in its head and not lose the plot on what the solution that's actually being built in terms of software is, and actually write a shit ton of code and follow the technicalities of like how to actually structure the code and all this other stuff, pushing and pulling from GitHub, deploying databases, all that stuff. It already knows that. You don't have to explain to it, which is how I learned that stuff because it taught me. You can do the same thing for any other type of knowledge work. It's not just coding. I don't know if like that makes sense. So like Claude Code is proof that you could just attach the harness to the model and it turns into like AGI level stuff.
Yeah, no, that's sick. That's really interesting.
So what I saw like with OpenClaw, I tried doing it, but OpenClaw always breaks. Like it always breaks, and it's honestly just more of like a shits and giggles, whatever. But the developer of OpenClaw, like he's always fucking shipping, and it's always like you can follow him on Twitter, and it's all open source, so it's all free. So Hermes is free. You can run the OpenAI, which you can't do Anthropic or anything like that anymore because they banned it. But all of a sudden, the model that you use, no, they did it again. So like people were like spamming the mess out of the tokens because Claude is just so much better. But GPT 5.5 is a sleeper. Like the newest one is a sleeper. If you have the right, it turns useful based on the harness that it's in. So this is why companies like Palantir are so fucking amazing to me. Because what they've done with all the operational knowledge is whatever. It's like they're creating harnesses around the model, so where like the model changes, it doesn't matter what the model is, which is why all of a sudden the moat moves into the harness. Because you could swap out whatever model. Like who gives a shit? They all have the same parameters, and eventually all of this is going to be local. And like Apple's just going to come out with an M4 that has a local model that's just as powerful as Opus, and then who the fuck needs the cloud model providers?
Yeah.
But if you have the harness, then you have the actual tool, which can actually do stuff that's actually useful instead of just the model that's like half like the high horsepower retarded intern.
Yeah, no, exactly. Like, because at the end
Does
of the
that
day,
make sense?
yeah, which is also why I'm very impressed with Perplexity, because they're building decentralized regardless of what the model is, but they're
That's a
utilizing
really good example of the harness.
ecosystem around it, and
Exactly.
they're also kind of moving into it's like a lot of people I've seen are like, why doesn't just Apple buy them? Which I think could be very possible because they're definitely building in a way where they're high on privacy. They're obviously like with the whole personal computer, they're basically leaning into like Mac Mini is what we're used for, and that's what we're there for. So I think that something like that is going to happen where you can customize the harness, and then what you put inside of the harness doesn't really matter because the two big things are going to be the context in terms of the data layer and then the harness of what are you having it do or where are you trying to like how are you holding it, and then you can plug in whatever machine. And it's like interesting too because I see a lot of the like I think it's the Kimi, which is one of the LLMs out of
Yes.
China, in terms of
Yeah.
like how half the cost, like a fraction of it. And especially like you're saying, as we move more towards local like
Private
hosting
models
things,
is where it ends,
private
bro. That's
models.
where it
Yeah,
ends.
which at that
Yeah.
point, it's like, okay, what is like what is OpenAI at that point, right? Because it's like
Just
you're
the
not
person
paying
that
for it.
harvests your data and then like just does all this other shit and then tries to replicate your startup and then just completely kills you. Like, yeah, we totally want to keep using that. It's like, hell no.
Yeah, so that's where it's going to be interesting to see because it's like the data layer is a big part of it, and then just the harness, right?
Yeah.
So it's gonna be super interesting to see kind of how things evolve with that and where kind of like the tech goes, which is the other part of it too, which I thought was really interesting is like Apple, Tim Cook's is stepping out, but they're putting a hardware guy in as the new CEO,
A
which
hardware
if
guy?
yeah, he's like he's been the head of hardware,
Shit.
which goes to show, which is really interesting because it goes to show like, okay, where are
That's
they
the
thinking
compute.
of
Yeah.
where is the puck going, right? Because obviously like they put like Steve Jobs was the founder, then Tim Cook was the COO in terms of ops guy, which is the guy like I mean, under his realm, it's been insane of how much they've streamlined and made the company efficient from where previously they couldn't even have iPhones ready to launch when they launched them to now like being able to do it and dial in the back end. But now, in terms of where the direction's going, in terms of moving towards hardware, it's like, okay, what does that kind of say about the bet that the company's making of what they're trying to do? And I think a lot of that comes down to like the aspect of is it worth still trying to run towards the software of like you have the couple big open people like obviously Apple's working with I think it's Gemini now. Initially it was supposed to be with GPT or OpenAI, and then now I think it's Gemini that's their Siri if I'm not mistaken. But I think
It's
that
all
they're
serious
still
still shit, but yeah.
no, yeah, 100%. Like it's funny because I saw somebody was like, dude, Whisper Flow is what Siri's should have been like
Should
years
have
ago.
been. It's like
Yeah,
what Siri should have been is Whisperflow plus OpenClaw if both work.
exactly. Oh yeah,
Like,
100%, 100%.
or
So
Hermes.
so
Yeah.
yeah, so it's really interesting just to see like their bet of where things are going. And then I saw there's this one guy on Twitter too, the guy who keeps posting about like how he has like 12 Mac Minis that are all doing things, but we've never really seen any revenue that it's generated. But like that's a different story. So he had something interesting where he was like basically saying that like we've had this the last say 15, 20 years, the cost of hardware has gone down, but now it's
Yes.
going up. I looked at Amazon specifically, and the Mac Minis are like $200 more than when I bought them just a month and a half ago.
Yeah. I bought one too. And that yeah, it was nothing. It was like $600. Now it's like $800.
Yeah,
But
that's what I was seeing. Now,
because
that
all of
could
a sudden
just
the
be
chips are being super useful because now you can host local models on top of the hardware, which makes it that much more valuable.
yeah.
And I like there's this startup. I don't know if they've actually made any money, but the shit that they've done is like the most insane thing ever. What they've done is that they've what is it called? It's like Teles computer. Like I would love to show you rather than just tell you because like it's hard to
Okay.
comprehend how fast it actually moves. But what they did is that they took silicone, like the chips or whatever it is,
Yeah.
and what they did is that they embedded the models into the chips. So instead of having the cloud model and then having the chip that your like the RAM that your computer has in it, like I don't know, like
Okay.
bouncing back and forth and like actually moving that way, the model, like think about it. The cloud model, you have the model itself and you have the training data that it has to reference in order to pattern match the tokens,
Okay. Yeah.
right? And then you have your computer that has to process it all and then actually spit it out. What they did is that they embedded the model with the data inside of the model just in the chip,
Yep.
which means there's no like, let me boom, 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 eventually get an answer back. It's just done. So, like, you've seen Claude give you these like walls of text responses, but it'll probably take like 20, 30 seconds in order to get it all
Yep.
out and all this other stuff. That one, they've successfully embedded like a llama model, which is much worse. So it's not that great, but it's proof that it works. It literally, as soon before you even finish, like you know, I hit a keyboard, your finger goes down, it
Mm-hmm.
presses it, and then it happens, and then your finger still has to go up
Left up.
because you're pressing.
Yep.
By the time your finger's up, the full wall of text is there.
That's crazy.
So like it's literally it's so many it's like not only tokens per second anymore, it's like tokens per millisecond.
Oh wow.
So like that they've successfully made computers with these llama models or whatever it is inside, like embedded in the chip. So when you buy the computer, it's offline, it's private, and it's faster, which means eventually whenever the offline models that they can embed get to like Opus level, like imagine Opus being 1,000 times faster and private that you
Yeah.
just buy off the shelf at Best Buy.
That's nuts.
I don't think that shit's going to be legal, but it's possible. Like, I don't think that, like, this is all, I think that's why the cost of hardware is going up, because people are realizing you can fucking do that. You can
Yeah.
literally embed a model into the hardware, the actual computer that you have. Like right now, I downloaded what the Google's latest model, and like compared to all these other, what's it called? Like compared to Opus 4.7 and GPT 5.5, like it's horrible. But it's what it was 2-3 years ago. But the window's
Yeah.
closing like this, and I think what you were saying about Apple is like I think eventually you'll be able to. Now this is a prediction, but someone said it, and I was like, that makes sense. You'll be able to go to Best Buy, buy a Mac Mini with Opus 4.7 already in it, and it's private.
Oh,
And
I think so too.
at
I think
that
so
point, you
too.
don't even need these cloud things unless you want
Yeah.
like
I think it's gonna
insane
be
stuff.
become a part of hardware, as like a pre-installed kind of thing. And I was just pulling up here right now. Mac Minis are now $7.99 as opposed to $5.99. They've jumped up
Sheesh.
$200.
Dude, I want to find like the silicon embedded models computer company. It's like Telus or something like that. Uh I don't know. But yeah, like that's where it's going. And then if it's going in that way, you having the harness to actually make that thing useful is like, imagine being able to create 1,000 ad creatives or like 1,000 PDFs or 1,000 invoices or 1,000 this or 1,000 that. Whatever the actual thing is that you're automating and doing, imagine being able to do that 1,000 times faster. And it's actually
Yeah.
action, but it's actually accurate. Which is, so that's where like the harness all of a sudden, so like that's where the compute ends up going. I think where the other side ends up going to where it's actually useful, like you could literally, by figuring out that harness, let's say you have like I don't know, like a financial analyst or whatever it is. Content's a thing that you and I both know the best, so it's like a script writer. But even then, that's
Mhm.
very lightweight. But you can literally have these soft skill service type employees in an agent that's on your computer, that the cost of running that business and delivering the service is just electricity.
Yeah. No, I think it's gonna be really interesting to see where things go, especially with you have like the cost of computing, the cost of doing things is going to decrease, but then also I think that that's where like the cost of labor is going to increase because you can do a lot of these things, and then there's always going to be that last, call it, piece of human intervention within the loop, which is where it's going to be, because things like that are kind of, would be my guess at least, going to drop the same way, just like a lot of things have dropped in terms of cost, because it's going to be so readily available. Of like, why would I pay for X software if I could do vibe code it myself or do things myself? Um, so I think that like a lot of those things are going to become more like, call it utility products, where it's just like water, gas, electricity. And then the specialized or that last mile is going to be kind of that expensive thing. But even that, I mean,
That's the
heck,
expensive thing.
yeah, but even that with robots, in terms of like now how Meta is basically using people use the Meta glasses to record themselves doing things. And like I think it was DoorDash too, was spending millions of dollars or paying people millions of dollars to record them doing everyday tasks, because that is basically going to be the training data for the robots that can then build things.
Yeah.
So it's like this is just, yeah, it's nuts in terms of where things are
It
headed and kind of what they're
yeah.
doing.
But then that ties back into what you're saying. Because if earlier about the events and the in-person stuff. Because if all of a sudden, like, what does it take to? I think the easiest one is the easiest one to reference is the one that I'm working on
Hmm.
is like healthcare stuff.
Yep.
So if like you're a doctor,
Yep.
the reason you sell to PE and massive organizations is because you can't afford the professionalization and knowledge stuff to actually run a business. So either you sell it or you have to become an entrepreneur, which at that point you stop being a doctor, which
Yeah.
is you became a doctor to be a doctor.
Yeah.
So like you end up being more of a businessman than you do like actually helping the patients. Does that
100%.
make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, yeah,
So
because
now
at
if
the end of the
all of
day,
that back
you
office
is removed.
is taken off your plate and you get now
Yep.
all you're doing is you can invest time into that relationship with the patient.
Yep.
I mean, bro. And I think
N
across all industries.
No, for sure. I think that like, either A, it's gonna become wherever it becomes more like the economy becomes more gig economy in terms of like you're doing trades, you're doing different things. Or it's gonna be kind of like you're saying, where every entrepreneur is a technician, a visionary, a builder, and a doer. And like most of it is back end work. It's like, do you think that I want to go in and schedule the email and do this, that? Like, no, not interested. And a lot of that could be streamlined to then allow the technician to do kind of the technical components. And especially, why do you, like an entrepreneur, you start and your business is to get more business, and then your business is to deliver on the business, or the premise of what your business does, right? Whether it's a service or product. Then as you scale, you now need somebody to handle with all the other complex issues that happen: customer service, logistics, operational components like this. It becomes more bloated, or it becomes bigger, because there's a more demand on, like, you're not getting 7 emails, you're now getting 700 or 7,000 emails, right, on a monthly basis in terms of that. So somebody has to do that. And then it grows. And then, like, as you grow even more, now somebody has to manage that to make sure that everyone's getting paid, and like all these other things are coming around. So I think that's where, especially from a gig standpoint, it's like it's going to decentralize a lot more, because you can have a local agent that runs and you can do the rest of it, which means you're removing a lot of that admin work that's needed in order to specialize specifically on whatever your skill or trade is.
And I think that's actually where now gets like super deep because like there's this sentiment with doctors. It's like the independent doctor won't exist anymore, like eventually.
Hmm.
Because either it's getting too expensive to compete against these massive organizations and it's too risky and too expensive to start it on your own. So like you literally can't compete. So there's no point. But you know what happens when industries end up doing that? What ends up happening is that it consolidates all the way. But I also think that there's a way where that becomes too much, which is like the Verizon, AT&T, etc. So all of a
Hmm.
sudden you don't have the competition that capitalism allows. So you don't have innovation, which is why we
Yep.
all hate our cell phone carriers.
Hmm.
But if all of a sudden this just unlocks and breaks everything and levels the playing field, you then reinvite innovation across new things because you have
Yeah.
people that are willing to even able to start the businesses. So like I'm actually super bullish on doctors and healthcare, even though before I was like, yo, I think they're all wiped out. But I think
Hmm.
the sentiment around doctors for that sense is only that because they haven't been able to build a relationship. So like unless they're able to actually build a relationship with the patients, I do think it's probably better because your AI actually knows what the fuck is going on to just
Yeah.
use that for your health than it is to go to a
Yeah.
doctor. The reason
Yeah.
we hate going to the doctor is because we know they don't care about us and they
Yep.
can't care about us because they're too busy on the admin shit and they have
Mhm.
to see the next patient in order to satisfy the shareholders of the private equity firm that owns them.
Mhm.
And they like they're just tired. So like they have to do all that.
Yeah.
Like we know they don't care about us. But if you
Mhm.
knew that your doctor actually cared about you and could actually service you, I all of a sudden think that that is way more powerful and way more of a moat than being able to read your blood work and all this other shit. Because there's a difference between like that was never the job of the doctor. I
Mhm.
don't think. Like I honestly think the doctor's job is to make sure that is accountability. It's like a coach, like a personal trainer.
I also think a lot of it is the non-contextual data. It's like, okay, your blood work might say this, but they know like the history of the patient, right? In terms of like, oh, I've
They
been
know your
following up with this
emotional
patient.
stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like the fact that it's, oh, I know that this person is healthy and has been healthy for 30 years. They never complain about pain. And now all of the sudden they're talking about like something that's aching, although I don't might not be able to see it on an X-ray, like something's off. Like the that non like call it the metadata of the feedback and context that they know is very different. And it's like, okay, something's up, right? Like something doesn't make sense. And that's the
Yeah.
more three-dimensional data that an AI or something like that wouldn't be able to capture off the bat, given the fact that it like it can't capture non-contextual data, right? Because it's like you're not going to have that type of history or understanding or additional layer of context on the patient, nor would it want, right? Because at the end of the day, what's most likely going to happen is the doctor is going to give it to some sort of assistant tech anyways, and then they're going to read it, and then they're going to type up the report, and the doctor's going to stamp their name on it anyways. So it's not like the doctor's doing it. It's like, okay, do you really think the CEO of Apple is putting together the computer? It's like, no, that's not their job. And that's where I think the differentiation component of it is too, of like assuming like what is the role of the job? What are we paying them to do? Or what do we need them to do? And then what are they actually doing versus like what gets done through other people in a more streamlined process anyways.
Yeah. Exactly. Like there's the perfect way to put what you just said is Jensen Huang.
Yep.
He did an interview with the Dorkesh guy
Okay.
and like it went viral because they like got a little bit of a conflict around like you're supplying compute to China. Isn't that the same thing as like giving nuclear missiles to Iran? And he's like, bro, that's like the most stupid analogy I've ever heard in my life. So like they went
Okay.
viral for that, but then I ended up watching the interview. And
Yep.
then in the interview, he's like, we've people are misunderstanding the difference between a job and a task.
Mm-hmm.
Because a job is a result.
Yep.
A task is just what needs to happen in order to be a result. So when everyone's like, it's
Yeah.
going to replace jobs, no, I actually don't. I think it'll replace tasks, but I think
Mm-hmm.
the job itself is going to change because the job is actually attached to the result.
Yeah.
And and if you think about the doctor, the tasks that they need to do all of a sudden shrink, which allow them to focus on actually doing their job. Because the
Correct.
job of a doctor is to make you better. Right
Mm-hmm.
now, though, it's all the incentives are so broken because of insurance and billing just to collect the revenue and like that they actually charge you for the like legality behind prescribing things like all the admin shit, all the incentives are so broken
Yep.
because nothing's existed that's allowed the doctor to actually focus on providing healthcare.
Yeah.
And it's mistake, and everyone's like, it's going to replace doctors. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
that's not the job. The job is to like build a relationship with you till you actually get results on your thing. If you think of the
No,
job
for
of a
sure. For sure.
real doctor, it's to heal
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Like I
It's not
think
to do the tasks.
one of the big things that I saw too was there was I saw an interview, I think it was on My First Million with the president of Tesla, like the guy that basically was in charge of working under Elon Musk, and he was talking a lot about like how every innovation swaps jobs. So like back in the day, they were like phone switch operators where you called like the local, I don't know, place, and then you told them, hey, I want to put a long distance call to like this place, right? And
Mhm.
then it was basically saying like, okay, and then the 1-800 numbers started happening and boom, those were gone, right? Which is like, well, you lost jobs. It's like, okay, hold up for a minute. But then if we look at
You lost
the
the
now you
task.
that's a task in terms of like that
Yeah.
task that they did. But then also like what are new tasks that arrived? Well, now 1-800 numbers were cheap to the point where you need call centers because like people are calling into these things, right? So that's where things kind of evolve of it being very different now in the sense of like now we have call centers. That wasn't a thing before. Like
Yeah.
they're doing something. And then you look at like, okay, cool. Like one of the big things that I'm very interested in is, especially for blue collar businesses, is like AI dialers or AI secretaries. And it's like, okay, cool. You buy that. What does it replace? Oh, it replaces someone sitting there answering the phones. It's like, yes, okay, maybe, but not really. Because what do they do? Like most likely they're doing 9 other things and then somebody calls, they have to drop that to now pick up the call. They're basically on standby, and it's like, okay, well, what if you could just remove that need or drastically reduce it? What does it look like in that case? Well, then it's very different, right? And then it's like, okay, cool. What can they do now? That's one task that's off their plate, but they can do a lot of other things because guess what?
Because
When
the
these
job
people are
is
calling,
customer
yeah,
service.
yeah, exactly. The job is to get a result. The job is to help them with something in terms of whatever they have as an issue. So that's where it's like the job is different than the result, and therefore you need to look at it that way.
Yeah, like the job, the point of the job is the result,
Hmm.
but the task is not the job, which I think is why normies that are not into this stuff like it, that's why they're kind of feeling screwed because they confuse what their job is with the tasks that they do every day. Like
Yeah.
if you're in
Or
marketing, your
or it's
job is
also
not to
or it's
send
also
out
so or it's also so fragmented in terms of what they're doing that they're touching one part of the product with no idea of how that plays into the
how the
latter part,
machine
right?
actually
Yeah.
works. But if
Exactly.
you
How
know
the
how the
sausage is
machine,
made.
how the sausage is made, if you have an overall understanding of the system and the goal of the system, then you can actually add value. But if you don't
Yeah.
pick up your brain to think
Mhm.
about what you're actually doing, which I found impossible to do because I literally can't just sit and do a task without knowing why I'm doing it, which,
Yeah.
yeah. But like the all of a sudden, like you're a lot less replaceable if you understand how the system works, because all of a
Mhm.
sudden your job, even if you just assigned a task, which is just press this button inside of a factory, all of a sudden like a robot will replace that. But if your job at the end of the day is not necessarily to press the button, that's the task that your job has, but your job is really to manufacture this stuff faster.
Yeah.
So it's like all of a sudden, if you start thinking from that frame, you can start thinking of ways to do your job better, which is why I've never really understood the question of like, hey, boss, what'll it take to get this promotion?
Mhm.
That's like that question is the wrong question.
Yeah, it's like asking someone to mentor you them. It's like, dude, you're putting more work on my plate. It's like, why are we doing
Exactly.
that? And I think the other big part about it too, if you're thinking of the setup as far as like what's the job or what's this, it's like a job inherently is a way where somebody else found a more valuable way of utilizing your skill set, right? So whether you're
Yes.
getting paid at $15 an hour or $5,000 an hour, it's like somebody else found a way to monetize your time more efficiently, and they're creating some sort of delta above that, which allows you to get that hourly rate, right? And I was even talking to a client of mine, and we're like talking about, okay, what's the difference between someone like me versus some of the other people that he was working with? And I was like, well, a lot of these people are coming in because we're like fractional, like we're fractional in the sense of how we're working, and I was like, the difference is I come in with not like necessarily an hourly, like the thought process of you're paying me X for X hours. I was like, you're paying me X for a certain result. Whether I
Yep.
spend 1 hour or 40 hours or 100 hours doesn't really matter. I am in charge of the result, right? And the other people are thinking more from an hourly standpoint of, oh, I'm getting this hourly rate to put in this many hours on a week. And I was like, okay, so imagine you put in 90% of your hours for that week. And then it's like, okay, cool. There's this urgent thing, but my time is up, so I hit my max. I guess I'll come back to this next Thursday. It's like, well, any sort of business owner or entrepreneur would understand, like, that's not the case. Like, you have
Yeah.
a plan for how you attack the day, and then like there's these curveballs that just throw it off, and it's like, okay, cool. You can then make a decision, which again comes down back to the thought process of, is this important enough for me to pause these other things? Can I let that fire burn a little bit because it's not a huge big deal because these other things bottleneck and have a higher discrepancy in comparison, or do I drop everything and cater to this, right? Which goes back to the internal thought process of understanding, okay,
The
this
system.
is how the sausage is made, which means that if I like this one thing, which is like, call it the packaging, is like there's an issue with the packaging, but I also have like 100 pounds of raw material. And if I don't get this through, then it's gonna spoil or go bad and we're gonna lose all of it. So like one of them is like, okay, oh, this packaging is broken. It's like, okay, well, that's step 9 in the process. And if I don't even get through these first 3 steps, it's not gonna matter because it's gonna spoil and it's never even gonna get to step 9. So it's like
You're gonna
understanding
mess
of the
the whole
priorities.
thing up versus only
Exactly,
messing up
exactly.
10%. And
Yeah,
then you're
exactly.
all of a sudden, but that's with systems thinking, but that's with thinking with leverage. And here's what, like,
Mhm.
even the last episode, last time we spoke, is like what this does is it gives everyone leverage. And I think
Yeah.
what's messing up people the most is that they've never thought with leverage before. But if all of a sudden everyone can have leverage, you also need to, like, the actions you take to get paid and add and extract value, which is getting paid, is understanding how leverage based workers get paid in the first place.
Yeah.
And leverage based workers get paid on results. They don't, you like, it doesn't matter how much labor you put in. Like
Yeah,
if
it's like, why
my,
why do sales reps get paid the
exactly,
most? It's like, because 'cause they're tied to the result.
they're
It's
tied to
what
the
you
actual
kill what you
fucking
eat.
result. And you
Yeah,
don't
you
care
eat
how
what
many
you
calls they
kill.
take. You don't care how many this they take. You don't care. Yes, there's obviously like averages, but like if there was like who was it? I think it was Elon or someone said it. He was like, yeah, if like, if value is actually attached to labor, like we'd all be cutting grass outside and we would just ban lawnmowers.
Mhm.
Like, like we would just all
Yeah.
go cut grass with scissors because
Yeah.
if labor was actually valuable,
Yeah.
then, but it's not. But
No.
most people are used to thinking in the task, so they're used to attributing the value that they get. They've been trained and that's been reinforced. It's really like behavior. So like your
Yeah.
behavior has been enforced. I get a check for turning my brain off and executing task and being a
Yeah,
machine,
or being in a certain place for X amount of
being in a
hours.
certain place for X amount of hours. My reward center has been wired to think that that is how I'm going to survive. And
Yeah.
I think that all of this is really just it's like a behavioral thing, because even for me, after working for someone who used to pay me in that way, actually, like, I would still bitch and complain knowing I'm in a higher leverage thing, but not getting paid that, even though I'm getting paid more.
Mhm.
So like, but the bitching and complaining goes into like the behavior change. So I think
Yeah.
this is all just like a super internal behavioral change thing for people, because they are not like, they're going to have to go. You and I have reps and repetitions and scar tissue and muscle memory around leverage based pay,
Mhm.
paid on results.
Mhm.
Not everybody has.
Oh, and
And
especially also if you've been working for 20
99% of people
years.
don't have.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
if
So
you've
like
been working for
everyone's
such a long
fucked.
time, it's gonna screw you over because it's like, if you think of it, it's like, okay, I paid you X amount of per hour to do a task that took an hour. Now that takes 15 minutes. I'm not going to pay you to dick around for 45 minutes. So either volume needs to increase, but then it's also
Yes.
like, well, it's not fair because it's like, well, things are changing. Like you can deliver a product cheaper. It's like
But then
you
you as a
then,
business owner are actually kind of fucking up the employee because you're training them to think in that way,
yeah.
versus like the hourly thing, like you said, because all of a sudden now your incentives are aligned. It's like, well, I'm not paying you to dick around for 45 minutes, but also you're paying them based on the hour.
Mhm.
So you're incentivizing that type of result.
Yeah.
Like this
It's
is
no,
where it gets
like
kind of
that's the
stupid.
biggest thing. That's the biggest thing for me is really like, so I was a referee in a sport, and I looked like, think of what is a good referee. They call the shots that like need to be called. They make the decisions, even if it's unpopular. Then they get the frick out of the way. Like that's
Yeah.
what it is. A good ref, you shouldn't like. And the irony of it is, like, you never finish a football match and think, "Oh, that was a good ref." It's always only bad, right? It's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
effing ref," like he blew the call or whatever, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if it's invisible, it's good. If it's visible, it's typically bad, right?
Yeah.
And if you then extrapolate that out and think, okay, what's the role of any sort of leadership, or what's the role of like a government, right? Same thing as a ref. Enforce the rules, call the shots, but get the F out of the way.
Yeah. Get the fuck out of the
Like
way.
to a large extent, right? And if you think about it, then it's like, okay, so what do you do? And that's where I think, like, in terms of any sort of leadership, and then also especially also in terms of government, it's like enforce, like, when you're thinking of the rules or whatever, it's like, okay, what do you want more of? Incentivize that. What do you want less of? Make it harder, right? Typically speaking. And and then also look at the incentives of, like, okay, it's very expensive to have kids. If you as a government want to
Yeah.
have more kids, what should you do? You should incentivize more kids. Like, I think I saw now in Poland they have like if you have more than 2 kids, you don't pay income tax. Which again, they're
Oh
stacking the
shit.
incentive structure
Because that's
to
how
what they
behavior actually
want.
works.
Exactly,
Yeah. That's
exactly.
how human
And
behavior actually
if there's a
works.
if there's a misalignment, it's like things are misaligned. I was talking to a buddy yesterday, and he's expecting a kid mid-March, but at this point, it's like the last 2 weeks. It can come whenever. And it was funny because I was talking to him. I was like, "Oh," and he's like, "Dude, I gotta like step up my efficiency because I gotta knock these things out, this, that, and the other." And I was like, "Yeah, it makes sense because it's like whatever time you're allotting for this task, it's expanding to fill the task because you're kind of
Mhm.
thinking that way." And I think that especially the longer that behavior has been incentivized and set up, the harder it's going to be to reverse it because it's like you're walking down a direction. Like the analogy I gave for a buddy a couple years ago, in terms of relationship, it was like any sort of relationship you go in, especially if it's like a romantic one, is a one-way street, right? And the further you go down just typically means that when you if you break up or it doesn't work out, it's going to take longer to get back to an equilibrium, right? And the further you go down, the longer, like, it's a one-way street. So the further you run and then you break up or you stop, which is the midway point, you kind of have to work backwards, right?
Your
They're not
switching
necessarily linear.
costs. It's very high.
Exactly. But the premise of it being, especially then also in terms of like, okay, you're an employee. It's like that's all you've known for 30 years of you're tied to this, you get an hourly and then you get this. It's like, okay, cool. But the irony that I always think is like, okay, being an employee is so safe. It's like, no, it's a false sense of security. It's like you're at what was Jack Dorsey's company, Flipper or whatever. You wake up in one morning and you're
Yeah. Yeah.
gone.
Yeah. Block.
It's
Yeah.
like,
They just
yeah,
fired
block,
everybody.
whatever it is. And then you see Oracle, 30, like 6,000 people on a 6 a.m. email, like, done, you're done. Like, it's just insane. Like I had somebody I was talking to, and like they'd been in a company for 30 years. And then it's their like they get on a call and it's their last day and they're literally taking remote access of the computer and logging them out. Like they've shut them out in terms of like a setup. It's like you think that there's some sort of security, but it's like very false and security. And if you look at it from a historical standpoint, it's like we're used to hunting and killing. Like that's what we're used to. And that's why you
Yeah.
build tribes, because you can rely on other people, which is the family unit. And a lot of that has just been deconstructed because it's like, well, now you're all scattered. You have a
You're a
job, like that's the
factory
priority.
worker that goes here and
Exactly.
does
Like,
this, and
yeah, it's
we
like you're
turn
you're you're
knowledge
shutting
and
off.
knowledge work into factory work.
Yeah. And I think it's so interesting because it's like you're looking at it of like it's a false sense of security. It's not the way it's been. It's not the way it should be in many arguments. But it's just like it's what we've been defaulted to.
It's also just not how reality works. Like
No.
it's Hormozy said it really good on Andy Frisella podcast once. He was like,
Okay.
certain people are wealthier because they just have their understanding of reality is just way closer to what's actually true than yours is. Because if
Hmm.
you think the employee hourly model is real, it's not real. It's a way that they've found to make you understand why you need to do your job.
Mhm.
It's trained behavior. So
Yeah,
they've found a way
they've
to
put a
train the
harness. They've put a
behavior.
harness
They've
on
put
it.
a harness on you
Yeah.
but the harness isn't fucking real.
No.
And it's like they've now trained your behavior to do a certain thing at a certain time, at a certain this and a certain that. And now in a world where you no longer have to treat humans that way, it's almost like go ahead guys, you're free. Like you guys no longer have to be slaves, you're free. Which is the way I view AI is like, dude, no one likes their knowledge work job anyways. Like accountants are the most miserable, lawyers like are all the most miserable people I've ever fucking met.
Mhm.
Bankers, like they're all finance, like they're all miserable because they've been reduced to a task and an action and a 0 and a 1.
Mhm.
But now the AI is here that can actually free you from that thing, which is where I think the branding and the marketing of AI is so bad. Like I think it's like $1 billion fuck up of being
Mhm.
like, yeah, you're gonna
I
like
mean, at this point,
trillion
trillion.
dollar, yeah,
Yeah.
$1 trillion fuck up because it's like, yeah, bro, you want the same knowledge workers that you're saying that you're gonna replace and be put out of a job. I think the messaging should be we're actually freeing you. But
Yeah.
with freedom, like freedom is also like this philosophical thing of like you
Safety.
have
Yeah.
slaves that were free, but then that
But
went
they
back
lacked
to their
safety.
masters and were like, yo, like take me back, please, because you gave me food
Yeah.
every day at noon. And even though it was the
Yeah.
worst conditions ever, and that's just like a human issue. So it's
Yeah.
like,
It's trained behavior.
that's the thing. But then the crazy fucking part is that, and like this is where like tying it back to AI, and this is something I found that actually works that I brought up to you a few weeks ago, is training behavior. Yeah. And like, why does training behavior work? Because our biology is like, we get dopamine when we do this, and we
Mhm.
feel good when we do this. And if all of a
Mhm.
sudden you reroute that dopamine to fire with delayed gratification over instant gratification, all of a sudden you can become way more successful because you've literally rewired the chemistry inside of your brain. There's like
Mhm.
there's a technical reason why that happens. It's not like a philosophical like thing. I
Mhm.
think the philosophy of it all is just a compressed way of communicating the technical shit.
Mhm.
Honestly, that was a bar. But the if you think from that lens, like humans have biology, which operates in a very similar way to technology. Like it's a very 0 and 1
Yep.
cause and effect thing. So
Yeah.
then, if you think about the controlling the behavior and consistency of an AI agent, which
Yep.
is like back to what we were talking about earlier, the by giving it the skills and the harness, you make it more technological, which for humans is biological,
Mhm.
expensive to do the wrong behavior than you do to do the right behavior. Because for
Yep.
humans, it's actually our expense is like pain versus pleasure. So
Yep.
it causes us more pain to do the behavior that we once got pleasure out of, which is how you rewire. Like that's how you do habit change.
Yep.
But you apply the same thing to AI agents, and now you get the most insane fucking employee of all time because it's like its behavior is trained to do exactly the right thing. And it's like honestly, I feel kind of bad because when I'm like training this agent to do this task, and I'm like, bro, just focus, don't think. You're not creative. You're not this. You're not that. I'm like,
Yeah.
if I ever treated a human like this, like I feel horrible. But that's how humans are actually
Yeah.
treated. That's how humans are treated in jobs.
Yeah.
But they're so rewarded to it, like they get their pleasure from their paycheck from it, that now that they can actually be free, it's actually the worst thing that could ever happen to them, and their brain's not ready to handle it.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty fucked up. Like
But
I think if you have employees,
that's also where I feel like if I were to tell when did your life change in terms of having a business? Like it's always when you made your first dollar online from a stranger and like they paid you before you'd even delivered anything. And you're like like
wait,
your
what?
whole
I
thing
could
just
get paid? Like,
no, but also like you're getting paid from a stranger online or like whether it's just whatever, right? But you're getting paid for something and you haven't even done it yet, right? Because it's like you work an hour and then like it tallies up at the end of the week, bi-weekly, end of the month, then you get paid back.
yeah,
But I remember like seeing that first wire in my account being like, holy crap, like this has broken me in the sense of like everything I thought was real has shattered. And
Yeah.
that's where I think that, like,
That's where your
ironically, the
behavior
more
can change
yes,
because
because now
you've
you're
now
getting rewarded
received
for something else.
positive reinforcement for a new behavior, and now you're like,
And
holy
also, like,
shit.
again, you're moving in a different direction, which means that you're now, like, seeing something different. Like, there's so many different things of just how it's done and how it changes.
And this is where I think this is something I've poured a lot of thought into, is like, now the people are infinitely more valuable because they all have leverage underneath them.
Mhm.
So you actually, the ROI on pouring into somebody to change that behavior and to solidify that is actually, well, first of all the salaries and all that money that would go into paying everybody now goes to like 100 people. So out of
Mhm.
100 people, it goes to one person.
Oh yeah,
What
you
happens to
know
all
how
the other
you know how
99?
in you know how in tech they talk about, like, the 100x engineer. I think
Yeah,
that
all the
that's going
money
to be
goes
in pretty
there.
much but I think that that's going to happen in anything, because now the leverage
Yes.
you have in terms of the workload that you could do, which also a lot of that comes down to, okay, whose decision making process, who can think more critically and be more specific of, like, the one person firing the cannon of telling AI where to go and what to do and how to do it is going to be the biggest part. And a huge part of that is, like, really just breaking down, not necessarily how are things done, because, like, it's the difference of, in Google Maps, you can, like, you see the distance in air miles versus, like, street miles. And
Yeah.
it's really going to be re-engineering, because people are so ingrained at driving the street miles of, like, okay, left on this street, right on this street, 4 miles down, take a right, versus now it's like, okay, what's the fastest way? Maybe there's, like, some like, electricity wires that are just boom going right that direction, or, like, what could you do alternatively? Like, that's going to be the big thing of just looking at how you make adjustments.
Yeah. And with, yes, and the fastest way to do it is the leverage that your human could sit on top of, like your actual
Mm-hmm.
employee.
Mm-hmm.
And if you think of the word employee, it's like the redefinition of that word, because what I was getting to, like you just said, all the distribution goes to like the best, right?
Yep.
But then not every business can afford the absolute best. Not all of us have
Mm-hmm.
$100 million a year to pay an ML, like a fucking machine learning AI trainer or whatever it is that they do, like
Yeah.
the AI researchers. Like
Mm-hmm.
not everybody has the $100 million a year. So then all of a sudden, if you're a much smaller business, or even if you're mid market, like even if you're not, even if you're just like massive corporate that can't afford the $100 million a year per researcher or whatever it is, because that's not your business and you can't afford it, you all of a sudden have incentive to actually invest in your people and get them to change that behavior. Because if you unlock even one, you've bought the asset, quote unquote, at, you've bought low and sold high. Like you could take a salesperson, like you could take someone who's never done sales, you recruit them for nothing, teach them the skill, and all of a sudden you've bought that sales rep for nothing. So
Yeah.
now it's like, how can a small business compete? You actually have to invest in your humans to think less like traditional employees and more like the high leverage worker, and then
Mm-hmm.
give them the leverage to sit on top of.
Yep.
Like, I don't think there's a higher ROI task of teaching like a VA AI, because
Oh,
all of a
no, no.
sudden, like, it's insane.
Yeah.
And then if you unlock the idea that you could get paid on leverage, and hey, this is like the behavior, this is actually a better behavior for you if you're willing to take up that mantle and like carry that, I can actually pay you more, and I would
Mhm.
love to pay you more. So like I think it's actually
No, I
really
think
good things.
the future comes down to highly efficient, lean teams that can do high volume of output. I mean, just look at Anthropic. Look at these, like, call them cornerstone ones, right? Where it's like you reduce the bureaucratical in between that makes it, like, that just bloats the company, and you're highly aligned, you're pushing in the right direction, and everyone's incentivized in terms of growth, so alignments are set up the same way. I think that's, like, ultimately the future of where things are headed.
Yeah, and if judgment's all of a sudden the most important skill, because you can
Yeah.
guide the AI in a very certain way. And taste is an important skill. All of a sudden, your time around training, like now, training an employee to press this button and do like literal, like those software companies that like, hey, create an SOP for your employees because you could just we'll screen record it and then we'll just click and then we'll make the
Hmm.
SOP for you, Scribe or whatever it is. That's
Yeah.
literally how you train an AI agent.
Yeah.
So like you're training this human to do a task that you could replace for nothing instead of just training the human to think
Hmm.
and have judgment. So
Yeah.
I like you're actually investing in a dying stock.
Yeah.
And I
I mean,
think
this is also what we talked
yeah,
about previously. It's like the big part is like what is worth working on? What are problems? Like picking the right problem, picking the right market to help. Those bigger kind of invisible decisions that nobody makes. Like I had again go back to another client. It's like he has a theme park, but the way it's set up is super expensive because it's multiple different tiers and it's very labor intensive. So it's not
mm,
like you can streamline of how it is, because it's kind of like the decisions you didn't think about that you made initially play into every aspect of decision making later on because of the requirements, right? Like you can't streamline for efficiency. You can't optimize a lot of those things the same way because the boundaries you're working within are already kind of what's holding you back to some extent. So I think that that's where the aspect of picking the right problem, picking the right industry, and then kind of going at it is the higher meta skill of like, okay, at the end of the day, what game do you want to play? That's really where it comes down. Instead
yeah,
of like,
and I yeah,
what game do you want to
exactly.
play? What does winning look like? Those two people just, oh, I'm an agency or I do this business. It's like, no, no, no.
Yes.
Why? Because you
Why
can
do you do
make
it?
pretty much anything work, and like especially like a lot of it's going to take a lot of work. It's just more, what is your upside? And I think that's where to finish off for today, like that's the thing I really like about what Scott Galloway says. He's like, dude, don't try, like go to an industry where you could be top 10% and make a lot of money, not like an industry
Yeah,
where you need to be the 0.0001%, right?
like an
Like
info.
look at actors, yeah, or anything like actors. It's like, okay, yeah, we see that Michael Scorsese or freaking Brad Pitt or whoever got paid 15 million
Whatever.
for this movie,
Yeah.
like whatever. Okay, cool. You make like he makes 15, but like think of all the hundreds of people that are in that movie that make barely any money. Or
Yeah.
even let alone all the actors that tried and failed and didn't even qualify for the movie because they weren't good enough, right? Then you
Yep.
could look at it like a lawyer or a plumber or a lot of these things where it's like, dude, you're some random plumber in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and you're still making good money. And like you're probably not even top 5% or top
Yeah.
25% in terms of that. But it's just like you're making money that way. And I think that's the biggest thing of like, again, just picking the right industry, picking the right problem, especially if you're an entrepreneur and you're going after something. Like, I think that's where the biggest challenges is like, one, run micro experiments, test, iterate. Like it literally, the friction of creating something has been removed in terms of like, even right now I'm testing like a couple different offers, multiple different industries, and it's like, okay, $1,000 and I have 60,000 contacts I can send emails to, and I can test out variations of offers. Very little, like very little test. I spun up 2 websites with AI. We'll see what people respond to, and then we'll go where the need is. Instead of trying to like invent something and be convinced that selling ice to Eskimos is the right solution. It's like, no, no. Let's ask them and see who's interested in what, and then go based off of data. And
And the
AI
crazy
really
thing
has
is
just
that
removed all the heavy lifting.
yeah. And with your volume that you just executed on, normal people would be like, wow, that I should get paid a lot to do that. But you got paid nothing.
Oh yeah, and I paid to do
Because you
it.
know,
Yeah,
and you paid to do it
yeah.
because you know and your behavior has been rewarded on the back end that dude, that's a fucking big unlock. Even just saying that out loud to me right now. I'm like, yeah, it's the behavior change of it all.
Yeah.
Because now you're willing to do that because you know at the end of that you're gonna make a lot more money.
Yeah,
Like
like
there's no way.
you think somebody sat around a campfire like 1,000 years ago and was like, "Oh, where are we going to go hunting?" No, no, let's not go hunting there because we don't know if something's there. Like, you really think they like, their decision-making process was like, "Oh, I'll only go hunt in this territory if there's a rhino there that I can kill, or like elk or deer or whatever." It's like, they don't know. Pattern recognition. They went last time, they saw that there's a lot of people moving there. They know from, like, the yearly patterns, like, "Let's go." And we're going to keep going until we come back with something, right? It's like,
Yeah,
that's the understanding of, like, of just kind of
that's
that
a good
misalignment
analogy.
of really looking at it and thinking like, okay, let's do micro tests. Like, you could test things very low overhead, and figure it out and see, and also understand too then, like, feedback, right? Stages of feedback of what's positive feedback, what's negative feedback, but then also, like, look at what are leading indicators of, like, okay, I'm on the right track. Are people interested? Maybe they're not paying because you suck at everything, but are they interested, right? Is it like, are they telling you to F off, or are they wanting to learn more? Like, that's a leading indicator. And picking up these micro kind of crumbs pushing in the right direction. I think that's where the big aspect of it is too.
Yeah.
So that's the pod for today.